Hi, I'm Carol Coven Grannick, and I'm here today to talk to you about my first and brand new middle grade novel in verse, Reenie's Turn. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story and then a little bit about my journey, and then read a few poems for you. Reenie is an 11-year-old who's been pretty content all her life with who she is, with what she looks like. And this year is different. Something's begun to stir inside her, and in spite of her lifelong self-consciousness, performance anxiety, a little bit of social anxiety, she decides that it's time to come out of the shadows, and she tells her beloved and retiring dance teacher that she will perform the solo at the final recital. As soon as she does this, her fears just spiral out of control. And on top of that, her body begins to change, which causes immense discomfort in spite of the fact that she's been raised in a very body positive home. So Reenie tries to figure out how on earth she's going to find the courage to dance. And she's very vulnerable because of this to listening to a lot of the negative body talk that's happening around her in 6th grade. What she needs to discover, and it's hard for her to do it, it's not an easy journey. It's a long road to discovery, but she must discover that her value and her skill and her dreams have nothing to do with the size or shape of her body. So the process of writing Reenie's Turn was a long one. I began it in 2008. I got a contract for it in 2018, and it just came out in September. So there were lots of ups and downs. There were lots of things I learned. I think the most meaningful experience for me was really finding the heart of the story and holding on to that heart, even though lots of things changed around it. I held on to the heart, and part of that journey was discovering the deeper aspects of the heart of the story. And here's what happened, basically. Well into many revisions, I was reading through it and realized that I didn't feel anything for Reenie. Not a good sign. I felt like I do not love this girl and I need to love her. And I wasn't even sure that I liked her. So I figured that I had to do something about this. There was something wrong. I didn't know what it was. So I wrote a letter to myself from Reenie, and Reenie had a few things to say to me, among which were basically, back off. This is not your story. This is my story. I'm not you. You don't have to protect me from my feelings. I am willing and able to go through anything you need me to go through to get where I want to go. So I decided to pay attention to her. And I went back and I looked at the manuscript, and I also listened to some colleagues' critiques that were terrific. And I noticed that I had lots of qualifying phrases around all of these verses. There was lots of wondering and thinking and imagining. And what I realized is that it kept the reader, which at the time was me, distant from Reenie's authentic voice. So I removed all those phrases, but then I really looked at the verses and I needed to do more work on those. There was a sense of the emotions being noticed but not experienced. So I let myself sink into Reenie's character, her spirit, her heart, and my own memories, and recreated the verses in what then felt like an authentic voice. The other thing I didn't realize I was doing until much later on. Once the book was in production, I received a grant. I was lucky to receive a grant to go to Esther Hershenhorn's Vermont Manuscript Workshop, where she and I were going to work on a marketing plan for Reeni. And that included talking about some of the many blog posts I had already committed to writing before the launch, and what was I going to write, and what was my, I was having trouble thinking about what I would say. I had so many things to say. And what Esther did is that she asked me to do some homework. She asked me to write out the turning points in Reeni's emotional, internal narrative arc. And then, alongside of that, to write down the turning points in my own narrative arc, in my own internal emotional narrative arc during my years of writing for children since 1999 to 2019. And I did that, and what I discovered is that, unbeknownst to me, I had the same emotional arc that Reeni had in her journey. The events, of course, were very different, but the emotional events were almost to 100% the same. And that left me feeling that I had indeed deepened the heart of my story with my own heart and what I went through. And it was just a great feeling, because then I felt I had given my heart to Reeni, and that readers would be touched by Reeni's heart as well. So that was an incredible experience, and that was the heart of the story that really kept me going. And ultimately I felt rewarded in the end, because it became the book that I had dreamed of writing. So I'm going to read a little bit from maybe the first quarter of the book, and I'll explain a little bit before the verses so you know what's happening. The first is in dance class, and it's called Frost. In a minute, Miss Allie's voice peels away my cocoon. Reeni, come to the front and do it alone. And a flicker of something changes inside, like tingling frost on these winter windows, and the noise begins. Is my turnout good enough? Are my arms soft or stiff? How is my arabesque? I breathe in, blow out to warm the frost, and try to pretend no one's watching, but everyone is, and my noisy brain and mixed up feet know it. Jules is Reeni's older sister. They've been very, very close, but this year Jules is a senior in high school and has distanced herself from Reeni. Jules in the light. Jules glows. Dad calls her a born performer, loving the spotlight, shining as if the light's inside. Jules gets bouquets at the end of every show. She's Dorothy, Peter Pan, Annie. I was always little sister, glowing in her light, trailing after, proud to be with her. Jules is your sister? You lucky girl. Glowing in her light, second place was enough. Glowing in her light, I never cared until this year, when she grew up too much and left me in the shadows. Choreography. 3 minutes from Swan Lake, a pas de deux played again and again. Listen, listen, lean and dream. I'm on stage alone as the spotlight glows. Fear of the audience scatters like stage dust. Breathing deeply, air circles around me, bending with me, cushioning each move, and my heart stretches to fill me, hold me close up to the world, right up against the edges of the sky. This poem takes place in physical education class, PE. Inside today, late winter hail banging at the windows, wall hooks piled with tossed clothes. Chatter hits and stings like the hail. I hate my stomach. My thighs are so disgusting. I'm so going on a diet. I'm fat. You're not fat, but I am. You're not. Look at this. Words pound, 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 and force me to listen. Unfamiliar, odd, but heavy and hurting. As if I'm standing outside in the storm where no one has heard that fat isn't bad. Brah. If there's something worse than being watched while I dance, it would be this moment, this one right now, in this dressing room, with Mom and some strange woman who measures me right underneath, then smiles and shouts out with comments about my cute little figure, as if we were on stage with an audience of strangers who shout, "Here she is! Look at her, a brand new woman!" The crowd laughs, and Reenie Rosenblum slides into a hole in the ground and barely fits. And also, how can you want something so badly and also be afraid to do it? How can you be so sure you are good at something and also feel clumsy and inept? How can you feel so free when you dance alone and also so tied in knots when people watch? How can you want this more than anything, but know that to do it you might have to become somebody you're not? Thank you for coming today. I know that it's a hard time to be buying books. I would love it if you cannot buy the book, which is totally understandable. If you would ask your local library to order the book, they can get the books from the bookstall where I can sign copies, or hardcovers are available from Fitzroy online, and that's through my website. I thank you again for coming today, and if you do decide to buy a book through the bookstall, please leave a message in the comment space. If you would like a personalized signature on the book, I'd be happy to do that. So thanks for coming, and thank you to SCBWI Illinois, without which I would not be here today.